Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Peachy here. I am going to be doing a little tutorial on the human digestive system, and hopefully these series of videos which help explain the body systems will be a good aid for you during this final unit in biology for the school year. We will also be going through some of these body systems in class. However, there's a limited amount of time to do them and lots of body systems. So let's get started. We're going to be doing this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to be using a sketch pad as well as our screen. So right now we're going to go strictly to either the tabletop. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment here. And flip the screen. Here we go. Alright. And I encourage you to bear with my beautiful drawing today. Our guy here has probably had a little too much pie, but I wanted to make the organs easy to see, and it ended up being a little bit on the plump side. Okay, so human digestion, we're going to follow the path of food as it travels through the digestive system. I want you to remember a phrase that'll help you out. And it goes, my pink elephant still smells like rotten apples. Okay, can't take credit for this. I did read it in a book, but it helps because the beginning letter of each of these words of this mnemonic device gives us the order of the main digestive organs: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, rectum, and anus. We also have a lot of helper organs, which we call accessory organs in here, which we'll also be going through. And we're going to be hoping to do this in a fairly quick amount of time today. Alright, so the first thing that happens in the digestive system is ingestion. That's where you take the food in. And then in the mouth, there are two things that occur. You chew up the food, and you generate a lot of saliva, and then of course that food gets swallowed. So within the mouth we have both mechanical and chemical digestion occurring. So here's our mouth. We have mechanical digestion. That's the chewing, right? And we have the chemical digestion of the saliva. Now the saliva has multi-purposes. These two here, these pink things, those are salivary glands. You have salivary glands under your tongue. You have them in your kind of, not in your cheeks, but it's kind of like under the backs of your chin, kind of, on either side by your jawbone. You have them there, and you have them on the floor of your mouth as well. So you've got a bunch of different salivary glands, and they produce an enzyme called amylase. And amylase's purpose is to digest starch. That's pretty important here. So I'm just going to highlight this one. Okay. So starch begins its digestion in the mouth. It also produces mucus to help you swallow the food. It also produces some antibacterial agents to help keep you from getting sick. And then you swallow the food, of course, and it moves down the esophagus. Before that happens, however, you have this cool little flap in the back of your mouth, which is called the epiglottis, right here. I like to call this the cat door in the back of the mouth because it kind of acts like one of those little doggy doors. Since I have cats and no dogs, it's cat door, and it will just flip shut so that, because you have here, you've got actually two tubes. You've got a trachea too, which goes to your lungs. It protects the trachea, or your lungs essentially, so that food doesn't go into your lungs. Okay, I want to go to our shared screen for a second so I can show you a nice cool picture of the epiglottis. There she is, right there. This is in the back of the throat. It's pretty rigid, and you can feel it if you don't have a very strong gag reflex and you want to stick your finger back in the back of your throat. You can actually feel the epiglottis, and if it gets irritated, you can kind of get a sore throat from that too. So, all right, so moving on, the food's going to travel down the esophagus. And this is just a tube, right? However, it's going to move through muscle contractions called peristalsis. Those are those cool squeezy contractions that is kind of like squeezing a tube of toothpaste, or as somebody told me, one of my students said, like when you're frosting a cake and you need to kind of squeeze the tube to get everything out of it. That's the motion that occurs in the esophagus. At the top of the stomach, bottom of the esophagus, is an opening called the cardiac sphincter. I know a lot of people like to laugh at the word sphincter, but really all this is a kind of a muscle that is circular in shape, and it will open and close and tends to kind of keep things in or let things out. This isn't actually considered a true sphincter because it doesn't have that circular shape, but it is kind of the opening to the stomach. Then we get to the real important area here, the stomach. Now the stomach does a lot of different things. The stomach is going to produce a lot of stuff. It makes acid, hydrochloric acid actually, which has a very low pH of 2. And this is meant to kill bacteria. Many people mistakenly think it's meant to digest food, but it's not. They also produce, excuse me, something called pepsin, or tryptase, but it's an enzyme that digests protein. So protein digestion starts in the stomach, and it's then going to produce lots and lots of mucus to protect the lining of to protect the stomach itself. Otherwise, because the stomach is made of protein, the pepsin would just digest the stomach. And that can happen if you have too much pepsin, or if the mucus is compromised somehow, then you could develop an ulcer, which is basically what's happening. So at the bottom here of the stomach, there is another opening, and this one is called the pyloric sphincter. Just another thing that opens and closes, and letting the food move into the small intestines. The small intestines is divided into 3 areas. The first and top area of the small intestines, which is, I wouldn't call it the most important, but it's definitely the most exciting part, if you can call the small intestines exciting. This is, I'll just call them small intestines here. It's divided into 3 areas: the duodenum, the ileum, and the jejunum. And those actually go in alphabetical order. So if you ever forget which comes first, it goes in alphabetical order. Duodenum. I'm not sure if there's 2 L's in there. No? That might be spelled wrong too. What happens in the duodenum of the small intestines is this is where you have a bunch of stuff taking place. And you get one of your helper organs to really assist here. Actually, all 3 of them. The 3 main helper organs are going to assist. This is the pancreas. And it plays a role. That looks wrong. Oh well. This is the pancreas. It plays a role in not just digestion, but we're going to talk about its digestive role today. It actually secretes, it secretes a couple different things. It secretes a buffer that's going to take this very highly acidic contents of the stomach, which are now called chyme, when they move into the small intestines. It's basically the consistency of puke. They're going to take this and they're going to bring that pH back up so that it's no longer going to be very acidic. And there's also going to be enzymes in here. And those enzymes will digest both starch and also some carbohydrates. I said starches, but carbohydrates as well as proteins and stuff like that. There's actually quite a few different digestive enzymes, but I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail. And then we have the liver. And the liver is going to make bile. And the role of bile is to break down fat. It doesn't digest it, it just makes it smaller, so that it's more easily digested by the enzyme lipase, which is the digestive enzyme that takes care of fats. So the bile from the liver, which is right here, is stored in this little guy right here called the gallbladder. And then it travels down a tube called the common bile duct, and it empties into the small intestines, and it helps to break down fat. And there's a tube from the pancreas called the pancreatic duct, which also empties into the small intestines, and all of these things help to break things down more in the small intestines. One of the main functions of the small intestines is to absorb nutrients. Almost all the nutrients are absorbed in the small intestines. And the small intestines has these really cool little appendages, these little tiny fingers almost on them. They're called villi. And then it has even fingers of fingers, like little baby fingers on the fingers, which are called microvilli. And that helps to increase the surface area of the small intestines so that it can better absorb. From there it goes into the large intestines right here, the blue. And the primary purpose of that is to absorb water and vitamins. And finally it makes its way, this is the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon. It makes its way into the rectum, which basically is a storage place for poop. And down at the bottom here is the anus, and that's going to be your exit. And yes, there is also an anal sphincter. So that is going to give you the gist of the digestive system and what each of these main parts are. Remember, my pink elephant still smells like rotten apples is how you remember the main organs. And your accessory organs would be things like your salivary glands, the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder. Okay, hopefully that made sense.